Okay, I'd like to welcome John and Laura to our second interview of the week, as obviously I did my interview last week, and so I'd like to thank them for their time. And most of all, I would like to get on with these questions. But first of all, as I find out, this is not your first time of being interviewed, Laura, because as I watched earlier on ATV, your interview when you were with the University President of Stirling.
Oh,
so
no.
anyone that wants to watch that, please go on to YouTube and you'll see her name. Go on and watch that and see who her favourite swimmer was and what her favourite food was. I remember it very well. So I went on it this morning just to check it's still there. And it's ATV, University of Stirling President's interview. 10 questions, all you want to know about Laura.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
Yeah, there's a reason.
Keep brushing her hair. It was funny.
It was really windy, if I remember.
So I thought I'd get you on that one just to keep that quiet that I logged into that. Okay, right. We'll start with for the first question really is about your earliest part of your swimming careers. Where did you learn to swim? Who was your most important coaches in them days? And which clubs did you learn to swim with and how you got on with your early days of swimming? So I'll put it to Laura first.
Okay. So I started at Loxley Swim School when I was 4. I just my mum and dad just took me along. I learnt to swim along with my older sister, Amy. And yeah, we just went through the learn to swim and obviously it comes to an end. So it was Linda back in those days. I think Linda's still there now.
Linda Reid, yeah?
Yeah, Linda said, why don't you go for a trial at Portsmouth North Sea? So I went over with Richard's mum. I remember it at Victoria Baths and just went along and she made me do a couple of lengths of each stroke and then I was put in upper B as it was then.
Ooh,
and then before just going through all the squads at Portsmouth North Sea.
Yeah, we'll get onto them squads in a minute later on in your life. We just want your early part. John, I think, were you originally at the Isle of Wight or were you, because I think you're part London as well and you've got some London. Did you move to the Isle of, you were always at the Isle of Wight?
No, all on the Isle of Wight. So we moved when I was only like about 12 weeks old to the Isle of Wight, I think. So I started swimming. There was a club, I don't think it's there anymore. South Wight was where I first learnt to swim. And I remember, I think I got put into lessons because my dad couldn't swim at all. And obviously we lived on an island and it was a way of making sure you were safe around the sea. Did like learn to swim. I remember distinctly getting to like the deep end group and they would not let me move until I could swim fly and I could do the arms perfectly and I could kick perfectly, but I couldn't put them together. So I used to watch like 10 kids come in, I'd do my like term's worth of lessons and then they'd all leave again and I'd still be there trying to like learn how to do fly properly.
Well, that's sort of followed your whole swimming career, hasn't it? Really flying.
Yeah. Just struggling to put things together. So yeah, so stopped there for a bit. Then it was a club that had its own learn to swim. So then went into their groups. At that time, there's 3 clubs on the island that all kind of swum together as a group. But one, West Wight, were like the standout club. So I moved over there. So with my first coach, Trevor Collins.
Yeah.
Similar age, similar style to Stuart.
Just miserable, grumpy,
miserable, a lot of shouting, but a real stickler for like technique. So we kind of really honed in on that. We didn't have a lot of pool time, so that was kind of what we went down. The squad was quite varied. Our top group I remember had 3 lanes. One of those was masters, and I was the youngest at about 12, and it went up to the seniors. It was a real mixed bag. And then I moved to Portsmouth.
I remember you coming, when I was coaching, I remember you coming over, you used to come over at weekends to start with.
Yeah, so I came over when I was 16. It was like that last bit of year 11.
Yeah.
So I used to come over on a Friday night, train there on a Friday night, and then stay over with like a family there, or stay with Graham sometimes actually.
Yeah.
And swam on the Saturday morning, then went back, and then eventually moved over fully when I was after GCSEs.
I just remember him being really bright red on poolside.
I do remember thinking, what have I let myself in for? Because I normally just do one length and have a rest.
Yeah, I went from doing about 20 to 25k a week to 65 to 70k a week. Thought I was going to die.
So for both of you, really, next question really is, Laura, I probably remember you when you're probably 14 or 15, and I remember I had the younger group then, so I had like Molly and all that, and we used to watch. I think phenomenally, your strengths were really your training and work ethic. There was not many people in that pool that really had that work ethic that you had, because you had a number of events to do. You had big events, and you did a lot of them. So you did 8, 15, 400 free, 400 IM, 200 IM, you name it. You probably did in that club most of the big events. So realistically, what do you think your strengths were, and what do you think your weaknesses were, and how did you overcome your weaknesses to build them into becoming your strengths? Because for these swimmers now, they've got to learn that their weaknesses could become their strength if they keep going and training hard and working on their weaknesses. But for me, there wasn't many people in that pool that trained like you did. You were phenomenal in training. You could watch your times in training. I remember seeing you train with Richard Gill, and obviously there was tears in your eyes some days because I remember how hard it was, all right? But I think for you, I just want to know what your strengths were and then your weaknesses as well. And I'll come across to you in a minute, John, yeah? Come on in, Laura.
I think I was in a really lucky situation where the people around me were some of my best friends to this day now. We saw each other at our worst, we saw each other at our best, and Louise Cox, for example, we were number 1 and 2 in the country for most events, most 200s, 400s, and every day we'd be training in the same lane as each other. So that's what spurs you on each day, is you want to be faster than your next biggest rival. And so if she's doing, I don't know, 110s at 100 fly, I want to be going 109s.
I do think in that era that you were at Portsmouth, in that year, the club did have some phenomenal girl swimmers. You, as you said, the Cox girl, Lizzie Brown. You know, you had Katie and Gemma there later on. Katie and Gemma.
Kaylee.
It was a phenomenal era in swimming in a smaller area, but you still got in there and held your own. I mean, you go and look at some of your times, and I was looking now. I think you still hold the all-comer record at Portsmouth. I don't, as a young kid, I think it was 204, 205 or something like that. Yeah. So I've done my homework. I look back on some of your times, but I do remember you because you used to go to nationals or regionals and see you do race after race, final after final. Not even jump in the warm down pool, get back up on the block, get the tracks on, get the medal back again. And sometimes you were doing something, and this is what I'm trying to get these swimmers to understand. Some championships, you were doing above 14, 16 races if you look at them.
So
if you look at the whole championships.
I'd be looking at probably doing between 8 and 10 races a weekend.
And I don't
nationals, and that's like heats, finals, and they weren't like 50s, 100s. I would be doing every 200.
I do remember it.
All the medleys, 800 free plus relays. So it was really full on. I remember sleeping a lot.
Yeah, you were like a walking zombie most of the time.
Yeah.
But
and I think
for you that you just did the race, whether it was good or bad or indifferent. You didn't get affected. This is just me trying to remember. You didn't get affected by the result. Maybe you did in your own head, but you always just see to get out of the water, whether you won, lost, or you did the same. You did exactly the same. Everything you were disciplined to do, you got down the warm down pool, you went and got your medal, or you did. But once that race was over, you moved on to the next race.
I think I learned very early on that you can't control what goes on in other people. You can only control what you do yourself. So as long as I'd known I've done my best, and if I hadn't, I could learn from it. God, when Chris Nesbitt taught me the first 400 medley touch over turn, oh my God, I was getting DQ'd, and that's the most annoyed I've ever been in every race I was doing. But you did learn from it, and that's what I kind of learned to get over, really. I wasn't an angry swimmer. If someone said do this, I'd do it. And I think that's probably my laid-back nature, if anyone knows me.
I know it. But for John, I remember you, like you said, I remember you coming to the club. I was coaching then below Graham, and I remember you coming in, and like you said, you were the reddest person on the pool. So for you, I think your strengths were always, I'll say one thing about you, but I always remember you from my days when I had to take over the club and came to the Arena League. If I needed someone to get me something, get me the point, or get me, a place in that relay team, or get me the points on the thing, I could always shout. But I had a couple of good boys like you and Stockdale and that, and Spence were always good. You would always, as a team, get up there and race. I would say for me, I think your raceability strength was far better sometimes than your training strength. I think you raced so hard. When it came to racing, the light switched on. Sometimes in training, the light was on, but no one was in. You know what I mean?
I think on balance between the two, I've always loved race. I still love racing. That's I could always find something extra. So I think it might be a little bit almost like the opposite side to it. I'm quite an emotional swimmer, I'd say. So like I can get up if there's something there that needs fighting for. I enjoy doing that.
I'll always remember the one race. I'll always remember, not your nationals. It was the Arena League, and we had a couple of swimmers that went to James Stockdale went to Waterlooville and swam, and we were behind in that relay, and there was no way. No. When you dived in, maybe a second and a bit behind him, I said to him, "There's no way he's going to lose." No. And I tell you, it was the best finish I've seen in Arena League, and we won it. But I nearly jumped in the pool. That's how happy I was. But I could always, like I said, for you, I think that was mightily on strength. You had that inner belief that you could race, and you still got it now. No disrespect. When you get on the block and you race them younger kids, right? You don't. I mean, if they beat you, fair enough. But you aren't going to give them the win. You're going to race.
No. I enjoy that, and it makes it. I say it's more enjoyable as well when I'm trying to think of like Joe Davis that have raced. So I gave him nothing, and then he's beaten me, and it's sort of like a double win, really. I can't lose. I could either beat him and I've won, or he beats me and he's had a good fight for it. And
I think that's helped a lot of them. I think even with the young boy we got now, the backstroker Spencer, I think when he races you, he ups his game in it, and he looks to beat you. And obviously it's great for him to beat you, but I still think you put up that torch that they got to try and beat.
Yeah.
Like going on to your coaches now, which coaches do you think influenced you? I probably know yours, but for you, I didn't, because you've had a few coaches that really influenced you. So I'll go with you, John, first.
Okay.
The main coach that really has helped you and influenced you. For me personally, if I'm looking at you, I would say you were made for Graham Woodell.
Yeah, so I think we came together at a really good time. To fast forward or rewind it back. So when I was on the island with, I'd say Trevor set me up.
He did.
In terms of we knew what we had, we knew we didn't have the pool time, so he was quite clear on what you had to be technically perfect, to try and make up some of that gap. We were racing back then, like you say, when you race North Sea, if you were winning counties against North Sea, you knew you were going to be up there with medaling at national level. It was that high, so to try and bridge that gap. So I'd say he did my formative years a world of good for how to do things right. But then I was on world class potential with the British youth team, and Graham was one of the coaches on there because he had a lad called Scott Houston, a couple of years older, another backstroker, and he took our lanes. And I just got on really well with his way of coaching. Like you were saying, he's a bit more laid back, gives you the tools, but you got to want to do it. He won't do it for you.
No, I think I think for me personally as a coach, he helped me a lot. I had a lot of my instincts came from Gil, but then he made me think more about swimming and the way to interact with people. He was a lot calmer influence for me in my swimming career, and I like to thank him for that. Same for you, I think, with you.
It's kind of like that, that teacher you have at school that you don't want to disappoint.
Yeah,
they never really shout at you that you just don't want to let them down. I suppose that's the only way I can compare it. But I'd say both helped, because you had to have that more disciplined approach when I was younger, which formed me to be fairly disciplined when allowed to be to take the.
I think Trevor on the island did a really good job on the island. He had a number of swimmers that he did really well with, and I think he was. Yeah. I think he won an award many years ago, didn't he?
Yeah.
And he was an unsung hero, really, because he was probably the main light that brought the island swimming on the Isle of Wight.
I remember, my first nationals, we had that top group must have had maybe similar to sort of now 20, 24 swimmers, and we had 9 swimmers going to nationals.
Yeah, which was unbelievable, really.
It was absolutely mad. And then obviously he coached Darren Mew before me. Yeah. First Brit under a minute for 100 breaststroke, and Lizzie Cruz was my age, or a bit older. Yeah. So I think he planned to retire when Darren left, and then I came along and ruined it. Like most coaches, you can't bail out.
Laura, for me, I would say you had a number of coaches that played a big part in your swimming, going even back to Loxheath and then coming to Portsmouth. But for me, I always thought the person that got the most out of you was Gil. I think Gil was made for you because he was tough, no nonsense, and that's how you swam. Tough, no nonsense. You know, and I can remember him pushing you and pushing you and pushing you, and you just getting on with it. So you tell me what coaches. That's only my opinion.
Yeah. So Richard Gill, he got me my first ever national gold medal at Coventry. And I was just saying, Richard's probably heard the story a million times, but on my last event of nationals, got out, went straight, got changed, got the medal, and he found me in the foyer and was like, "You're not going home yet, get changed," back in the warm down pool. I was like, "I'm not going to swim for weeks." And yeah, he was a very tough, but it's exactly what I needed. And he was very good at structure and very technical. And then from him, I went to Fred Kirby, and he had a real good balance of being tough, but also the fun side of Fred, where he was
he was
a bit older.
Yeah.
And I was very young in that squad with a lot of older swimmers, so I had a lot of role models. And I remember that as being quite a fun time, actually. And then from then I had Chris Nesbitt, and he's probably the person that pushed me the most, and he knew exactly what buttons to press. I got my British junior record when I was 16 for 400 medley with him, and he was, I just remember doing like 10 400s, and he was like, "If anyone breathes out the first turn, you're doing the rest fly." And oh my god, I still don't think I've forgiven him for doing 9 400s fly to this day. But looking back, that he knew exactly what buttons to push. And my breaststroke was definitely my weakest in my 400 medley, and he's the person who probably improved that the most and helped me specialise in 400 medley, whereas before that point I was just doing a lot of different races all the time.
I think when you moved up to his group, like you said, you were with, you've got to remember there's a world champion in that group. There was an Olympic, a world record holder, plus European, plus Commonwealth. That was some special group that you trained with at that time. I think, modern days it would be like Loughborough or, one of them. I think, and you go back to the swimmers you swam with, Louise Cox, Lizzie Brown. You can go through them. There was some phenomenal swimmers, especially the boys as well. And like you said, for both of you, I think the main part of why you swam and why you did so well is you had that. It wasn't just about you, it was about the hat. You swam for the club, you swam for each other. There was no way you were going to let each other down. There was no way you were going to just lie over and let someone roll over you and win. And
it was a good balance, wasn't it, in terms of, it's like every day in training you were racing each other, so you were like fierce rivals when you were at training, but you had each other as a team as well. It was a really good balance between the two.
So we'll go on to training now. Let some of these swimmers, like John, your 4x25s on an hour, they ain't going to wear on this one, you know what I mean? But if you go back and say, you've said some of it, like you had to do the 400s fly, you go and tell them, because I know the sets you did, I know what they're like, and I know, but some of these swimmers will not understand the sets and the swimming sets you do. So tell them probably one of your favourites and one of your least favourite sets. Probably the 9 400 fly is probably your least.
Mine.
You go
first. John, we'll go with you first, John, because I probably know what yours are.
I think my favourite set might surprise you is, so I started moving over from backstroke to medley, and I absolutely loved 5 400s medley off of.
I was going to say that as my favourite. Yeah.
And you had to hold under 5, and we used to swim in a 33 and a third pool, didn't we? So so I really enjoyed that set.
Or we did 6 400s, so you just send 1 to 3. You did 3 freestyle, 3 medley. So I used to like that. That
probably my favourite set. It still is now. I just still enjoy doing that one. And my least favourite, it is the only time I've ever got out of a pool in a training session. It was 5 800s, and you had to negative split the swim, and you had to descend 1 to 5. And I think I struggled on the first. And this is, I suppose this sums up Graham's way of doing it. Other coaches would shout at you. Graham said, if you don't want to do it, get out. And I did. And it's the only time I've ever got out. And I regret it because I've never done that set and don't actually know if I could do it properly. So, yeah.
And mine would be anything with breaststroke kick. I just hate it so much.
Yeah, I mean, most of the sets were standard at Portsmouth. We all knew what the sets were going to be. You probably knew what day they were going to be. You know, I mean, we all worked off, whether we worked off the top sets, going down the groups. We all had the same kind of sets that we had to do. And like you said, the 5 400s, the 6 400s. I mean, I used to get my youngsters to try and emulate you lot and get them going and make them do 12 400s just because I want to do more than you lot.
Yeah.
But I think
100
that's
we did
probably
Christmas Eve,
right in the middle.
that was always a Christmas Eve set. Yeah, 100s.
That's somewhere between favourite and least favourite.
Like
It's nice to have done, but
for me, I think I've evolved as in I used to love those big distance sets, but now I actually get more enjoyment about like we do the sets on a Sunday night. The world's changed in swimming, obviously now.
Yeah,
we were mileage focused in those days. It was all about 60, 70, 80k. Now it's a different world, and I think it's you know, still if you're a distance swimmer, you've got to do them like you have, and you do a lot of events, you've got to do that distance.
Yeah.
But I think more of working to that intensity towards that race speed is probably
it's
more
definitely
important.
changed, like you say.
So another thing that both of you did, I want these swimmers to understand there's life after leaving the club when they go to university. I mean, I'm a great believer in if you're a good swimmer to carry on that swimming. I enjoyed, obviously I coached you at Portsmouth University. I enjoyed that time with the university. I enjoyed the meets they were good meets, and if you made the final, you knew you were up there in Great Britain, but they were also fun meets. There was also a fun element to it. And I think when you leave college and you move on to university, I think if you're a really good swimmer, you should really looking at university swimming and taking it serious, because I'm also a great believer in nowadays the world's a bigger place and America's offering scholarships for swimming. You can go somewhere on your academics and your swimming, but you tell them about the enjoyment of university. I had the best laughs I ever had with the university swim team. I remember driving back and the motorway was blown up. There was a fire on the lawn. We stuck there for hours on end, wasn't it?
Oh.
You know, and I just remember the fun times I had with you lot going to university swimming. It was just fun. But you tell them what university's like and how the swimming is a bit different to club swimming.
Yeah, it's good. I think so. When you go to uni, you've obviously got most of the main unis now. If you want to swim at a top level, you can still do it, down to just doing a bit of social swimming. So I think it still keeps the door open for just continuing to swim at some sort of level. And it's a really good in for meeting people. You end up going away wherever you end up going to university. Chances are you're not going to know anyone. And swimmers are a bit of a rare breed. I think once you get them together, you can create.
They normally stick together, don't they?
Yeah, you can create that group really, really quick.
So when I went to Stirling, I was on a swimming scholarship, and they put all the swimmers together in a chalet. So we're the ones getting up at 5 o'clock while everyone else is coming back in. But it's quite good, like when you go to the Bucks, which is the university competition, and have a whole weekend to spend together. And then we used to try and race back to try and hit the clubs before the clubs shut on the final day. And it was good to go away on, camps and things like that. But like you say, it is a real good way of meeting other people and with the same interests and doing the same things. So.
Oh, good. I hope,
like you say,
some of the older swimmers, if they're unsure, they need to come and speak to you two about.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And like you say,
I think some of them now are getting to that age where they sort of need guidance on that. I think it's probably the best swimming they can do once they get you get nationals, but you can still swim at a really high level and still keep them academics at a really high level. And I think sometimes swimming is a waiting game. You might not be the best at 13, 14, 15, but a lot of people who were the best drop out quickly, very quickly, and I think if you can stay in there and go the course, you could do really well in swimming. So we're talking about now, we'll go into the highlights of what you think is your highlights of about what you've achieved over your years of swimming, which is your highlight and what your low lives were, your low moments were, I think to be honest, I always admire you, John, because you came through we know what happened with your dad and everything. You came through that, and that was a really big low life, in your life? And I will always, because it wasn't far off when my dad died or my brother died, and we'd lost my brother around, not far between. And I know my mum used to speak to your mum about.
Yeah.
But I think that's probably a low life that I think you actually turned that around and really got in the pool. And I think some of your best swims were after that moment in your life that you really did have a push on then. So you tell me what your highlights are, and then Laura can tell me.
Yeah, I think like the longer you go through, your highlights change. I think before I'd probably say like I won nationals when I was 13. That was a real big highlight because that's the first big achievement where you think, oh, I'm good at this. Might be able to get, and you start getting people that run the British programs paying interest in you, and you think, oh, I can do this. But then, yeah, like you say, like you don't appreciate that when you're there. I definitely didn't appreciate that. All that was a stepping stone. All I wanted to do, that was the next step to go on to, you want to go to Olympics and that kind of thing. But I think, like you say, when I wasn't at college, I was swimming full time. That was my aim, was to push through to Olympics, and unfortunately lost my dad at that time. So that was a low, like it kind of like that dream kind of goes. But then, like you say, a few years later, you sort of realise why you're swimming, that you actually just love it. And I love racing, and I think you just relax a bit. And like you say, some of my stuff as a swimming as a master has been just as enjoyable, like trying to swim just as quick, or like setting like swim faster than I did when I was swimming 10 times a week, but a bit now only swimming sort of 4 or 5 times a week. I think my highlights probably when we had European Championships in London. Just everything about it, really. They put like to swim in the Olympic pool was amazing. Won 3 golds. I think like 2 of my times are best times that I'd ever swum long course.
And during that time, you were training on your own because you were coaching.
Yeah. So and I've done.
I also think you were slightly unlucky in the rules. I know you had family and your parents were Irish anyway, and I think you would have, if the rules were a bit more helping you, I think you would have swam for. I think no doubt you would have swam for.
Yeah. So I remember. But I went there. And
I know how disappointed you were when you found out that you.
So they were quite. Nowadays, they'll sort of assist.
I think if you fly over, you can qualify now, can you?
Yeah, I went there. I remember going when I was 15. No, 15. Must have been the year before I moved to North Sea, and I broke their Irish senior record in the 400 medley. But they were so scared of FINA that they wouldn't. They just wouldn't. I had Irish citizenship and all that. So yeah, just. That was
hard. I know how hard it was because I remember, and I think people dumb down it. Yes, you never swam for Great Britain, but I think personally, if the door was open, you would have definitely swam for Ireland. 100%. You would have gone to the Worlds or the Europeans or whatever. And I think that door was they just didn't have the bottle to open it and get on with what they're doing now. So for me, I think you were an international swimmer and you should have swam for Ireland, but you're just unlucky. Laura, I know you probably had some massive highs because we know that you've. Swam where you swam. I don't think all these people know that you swam so high, so I think you need to tell some of these kids what level you swam.
Yeah, so I got national golds every year from when I was 12 to 16. One year I won 5, and then from that I went to Youth Olympics in Murcia in Spain, and I think I got a few medals there. I can't really remember what they were, silvers and bronzes. And then I went to European Juniors, which was in Austria, and I got a bronze medal out there. But yeah, I also got a bronze medal in the World Cup. That was my first open medal, so I was really chuffed with that, and I won £50.
Medal, go up to 50.
And that was in Sweden. So and I swam like amazing on like a 60,000 meter week, and everything just came together. I even got a handshake from Bill Sweetnam, who was like the director of British Women at the time. And I think, but for me, my highlights are obviously travelling all around the world with swimming. I've been to Australia twice. I've been to Edmonton when I was 12, when I first got picked for the World Class Potential Scheme. I've been to California, all different, Croatia, all different places. So. Yeah.
So if there's anything in your whole, coming towards the end of this now, is there anything you think, now you're older and you look back, on the whole time. And I look back on my swimming career and think, yeah, I could have probably done a couple more lengths a little bit faster. I might have done all that. But is there anything you probably would have changed, or anything you regret? Or do you think, nah, I don't regret anything. I've done what I want. Or the things, now you're a little bit older, you could have changed when you think, well, if I'd done that when I was training, or I had that mindset. Because like you said, you're still swimming really fast now. Both of you still can hold your own in your own age groups now. So is there anything you regret, or you would like to think you might have changed when you were younger?
I think for me, my mentality changed when I got asthma, actually. So before, my body was no limits. Like, I could do, if I put my mind to something, I would get there. But then all of a sudden I got asthma, and then I would have asthma attack during races, and I really struggled to find my limit, and then would get anxious about having asthma attacks. So that was like, I guess, my weakness and hurdle that I had to kind of overcome during the way, really, for me.
Yeah, I don't know. So this is when I went into coaching. This is something exactly what I thought about, because it's kind of, you want to take the lessons. You do the same, I would imagine. What you've learned as a swimmer, person, coach, you kind of want to make sure you help others. So, like, the positives were like technical stuff. I just think you can't substitute it when you're young, and it's really good to be like competitive and want to be at the front, but like, I just think that was drummed into me when I was so young, that just be technically perfect, because like once you lay the volume on top of it, and you've got plenty of time to lay that volume on top, you are then technically perfect and one of the fittest people around. So I think that, so personally, I think I'd have probably moved for my volume a little bit more. I remember your mum used to talk to me when I walked past, and I was like 14, 15, going, when are you going to join North Sea? When are you going to... Thinking back, I think she was about right. The sort of time she used to drop that in would have been about the time I'd like to have stepped that up, I think. But I think it goes to show, you don't, until you are like 13, 14, 15, it's just about being technically perfect.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think swimmers these days think they just can turn up. If they don't do it in training,
no, you have to do.
You're not going to do it in a race. Like, my biggest bugbear, like you've coached, you know, your biggest bugbear, going into the turn, coming off to the wall. If you can get that right, you probably got a massive chance of winning a race, right? Basically, and they go, well, you don't do enough. Well, you do probably 500 turns a session. Yeah. You times that by the amount of fly kicks under the water you should do. You should probably be perfect. When you're little, that's when you do the bits and pieces. You go, but I'm always a great believer is, you must do it at the intensity that you're going to do in a race when you're doing these sets. Yeah. So when you're doing a race-based set, your turn should be absolutely mirrored to what you're going to do on that day. Because if your turn's weak, you will get found out on that day.
Yeah, definitely. That was one thing. Graham,
well, you know, because you coached at Fareham as well. I mean, you started your coaching career, and you know, hopefully, because I still do believe you've got a massive, massive amount to offer in swimming in the coaching. I think there's not many people you can talk to about swimming that don't know as much as you do. You can talk about times, you know the times, you know what people are doing. You've just put swimming coaching on the side, because both of you are young and you just got married, and swimming is a hard, coaching is a hard life. On the family, on everything. And people go, well, you're going to work in the morning, and when the wife or that comes back, you'll go to work again. It's not. You need that time to be together. And I think once you've got on with everything you want to get on with, I think you need to get back to swimming coaching. Swimming coaching needs someone like you, John.
Yeah, enjoy it.
Also, you've got knowledge there next to you anyway. You've got Laura next to you. So both of you are like, so when you have this wonderful child that you're having fun still swimming, I'll be there coaching it. You know? Yeah, your mum did this. Your dad did this. So we won't. Yeah. But, you know, so I think for you, John, I hope you get back into coaching at some point in your life.
Yeah, one day.
And I think you'll do it. Laura, you're doing brilliantly in whatever you do. I think swimming set you up amazingly. I think you've always been bright, always been one of these people, even if you didn't know you, as a young coach on a pool deck, you would always smile, you always say hello, even though when I was at Portsmouth, and, you know, and as I've known you, probably both of you now for probably Jesus, so many years I would like to remember.
Yeah.
Probably 17, 18 years, maybe nearly 20 years I've known some of you, you know. Never really coached any of you, only you at the university. Never coached you, but always had like those girls that I had and those boys that I had always aspired to try and beat you and get on with you and try and race you. And they always looked up to you. And I think that was always my thing as a coach, to look up to those swimmers there, because everything you both did, you did right.
Yeah, I think that's...
I didn't have to tell you, Chris didn't have to tell you, you did your race, you did your warm-up, you warmed down, you got back out of the pool, you rested, you ate, you drank, everything you did right. Now, the last question before I thank you is, what advice can you give these up-and-coming swimmers that they need to do, and things, you know, not spreels and spreels of it, just one piece of advice from each of you about what you think they should do?
Mine would be believe in yourself, because mine would be believe in yourself, because if you don't back yourself, no one else is gonna be on that block. You're the only one that's going to be standing on that block, and you've got to have the confidence to know that you can do it.
Yeah.
Correct.
I was going to say similar. So I'd probably say perseverance. So don't expect everything.
I'm a great believer in that.
So don't expect to get everything you want right now. It might take, you might not be the swimmer that develops until they're 18. But if you quit because it's too much when you're 16, you'll never know. So enjoy the ride, but keep persevering with it. And I think between those couple of bits, you end up, I always, sorry, going back to coaching again, I always think, and I said it before, okay, if you're going to quit, make sure you've given it everything before you get to that point, because otherwise you'll wonder what if, and you don't want that. You always want to be able to have tried everything you possibly can to get what you want, and then you can always walk. You may well stay or you may walk away, but you can always be happy with where you got to.
I think you always got to leave knowing that you did your best. And if in coaching, I'm always the same. I'm like you in coaching. If I've left a job, I left the job because I've done my best. I couldn't do any more. And I always look at myself at the end of the season. Is there bits I could have done right? Is there bits I could have changed? And obviously, I don't need parents to criticise me. I criticise myself more than parents will ever criticise me. So, but for me, both of you, it's been like a pleasure watching you grow up in the swimming world, because I've known you for a long, long time. But I think it's a pleasure having you around the club, really, because you're good ambassadors with the club. You set good standards that these swimmers should look at. You're always there to chat to the younger swimmers on the pool deck, and you always make it light-hearted as well. And when you get in the pool and train, it's good to see you in the pool and training, you know. And I hope you stay at the club for many more years together, you know, and keep them going as much as we can, especially the master side of it. But I will thank you both very much for your time. I know you're busy and you've got to get back to work for 1 o'clock. So luckily we finished at 12:58. So I haven't kept you talking too long. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you. I'll speak to you later on. Thanks a lot.
Cheers.